Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for tonight's International Dermatology Education Foundation Educational Series webinar. My name is Ashley with RBC Consultants, and we are excited to hear from Dr. Leon Kircik this evening, who is President, International Dermatology Education Foundation, Clinical Professor of Dermatology at Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai, New York, Indiana University Medical Center, Indianapolis, Indiana, and Medical Director, Physician Skincare, Derm Research, and Skin Sciences in Louisville, Kentucky. He is going to have a great chat this evening with Todd Zavodnick, Chief Executive Officer from Dermavant Sciences. The title of tonight's program is The First Novel Topical Entity for Psoriasis in 25 Years. We would like to thank our supporter this evening, Dermavant, for making this educational event possible. Before we begin, we would like to cover a couple of housekeeping tips. If you're having issues hearing the webinar, you can listen to the presentation using your telephone. Just select phone call in the audio pane and the dial-in information will be displayed. If you're having technical issues, please reach out to our faculty via the questions pane on the right-hand side of your screen. At the end of this webinar, a survey will pop up in your browser and it will be emailed to you within 1 to 2 days. We would greatly appreciate it if you will fill in this short survey. And lastly, within 1 to 2 days of the webinar, a certificate of attendance will be emailed to you. Now, without further ado, I would like to pass the floor virtually to Dr. Kircik.
Thank you, Ashley, and good evening, everyone. Welcome to another series of International Dermatology Education Foundation educational programs. Today, we have a very special guest, and we have a different program than the usual. So first, though, however, I do want to introduce you very briefly, International Dermatology Education Foundation. We are a nonprofit organization. Our principal mission is to raise awareness and improve dermatologic care all over the world through education, especially not only in US, in Canada, but all over the world, especially in underserved areas. And as you may remember, we have done several educational programs, both in US as well as in Canada and internationally, both in English and in French. And a couple of years ago, we had a very special program. We had a CEO panel, and that was taken very favorably, and we decided to bring that back this year, and we're gonna have individual CEO WebEx series. And tonight, we're very lucky to start our first series with Todd Zavodnick, the CEO of Dermavant, who is very well known in dermatology, a very well respected figure, and he's gonna tell us about his new venture, the first novel topical entity that we're gonna have for psoriasis in almost 25 years. Todd, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks very much, Dr. Kircik. It's a pleasure to be here with everybody.
So first, even though almost everybody knows you in dermatology, you've been around in dermatology, but tell us a little bit about yourself for those of us in the audience who may not be familiar, and then tell us about the Dermavant Sciences.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I don't think everybody knows me, but I'll share. I started out years ago in Philadelphia in pharmacology in my studies for years. I did get into the biotech, biopharma industry, med tech with Alcon in ophthalmology 14 years. But I've spent the last 11 years in an area that has been very personal to me in dermatology, leading markets in Asia, Europe, Latin America, and North America for various companies. I was president of Galderma in the past, helped lead Cool Sculpting, as well as Revance. And for the last 4 years, I've been CEO of Dermavant Sciences. So a little bit about Dermavant Sciences. If you look at it, and you'll see it on the slide for those of you listening in, and our mission is really to make healthier skin a reality for millions of people around the world. We were founded in 2015. When I started, we were 20 plus employees, really spread across the United States and as well as Europe. And we stand here today, close to 300 employees, with an approved product that we'll talk about tonight in Vtama, and our lead product, Tapinarof. But really, what's special about Dermavant, Dr. Kircik, is it's a dermatology organization. It's employees that have spent on an average, I would say 14 years to 15 years in dermatology, and they understand whether it's the clinical or the manufacturing or it's the point of sale or the patient. There's people within our organization that truly take it personal.
You know, it's great to hear that now we have a dermatology company dedicated to dermatology, and we can infer it from its name, Dermavant. It sounds so good to our ears. Thank you for that. What originally inspired you to get into dermatology? I know you've been around for a while. I know you from your Galderma days, but I didn't know exactly what inspired you to get into dermatology.
The story is I was living with my family in Beijing, China, running Alcon China at the time. It was 2011, and I had the fortunate meeting to spend time with Mr. Humberto Antunes, a fine Brazilian executive who's been in derm his whole life, and invited me to lead, at that time, Latin America for Galderma. And so really in 2011 and 12, I picked up and moved to Switzerland to help lead the Galderma organization, and had a chance to lead Latin America, Europe, Middle East, and eventually North America, moving back in 2014. So, you know, it's the largest organ on the body. It's our CV, it's our resume, the skin. I will say dermatology, and everybody listening in, it is personal. The relationships with dermatologists are personal, the caring for the patients, and there really is a true partnership, not just with Dermavant, let's be honest, with every organization that may even be listening into this right now. The relationships in derm are warm, and they are all about helping the patients by delivering innovation. So for me, that's why I love it. It's not a job, it's something that we love doing, and it's not just Dermavant, it's every company that serves the patients and their skin.
You know, it's ironic. Dermatologists are less than 1% of all the doctors in US. So certainly it is a warm and cozy environment. And as you said, it's all based on relationships. And I think most of the small companies like yours that are dedicated to dermatology, they understand that, but it becomes very difficult for the larger companies to understand, to get to that space. So having said that, let's talk a little bit about your product, Vtama tapinarof. I've been very lucky. I consider myself very lucky that I was involved with your early phase studies, with the phase 3 and the long-term studies. And thank God I have a little bit early experience. But for those of us who did not have that experience, let's talk a little bit, since this was a really much needed innovation that finally it came and FDA approved a couple of weeks ago, and we just started using it. Tell us a little bit about the product. Why is this so important for us to have this product in derm?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, you know, I think a lot of people would agree. It's really the first and only novel chemical entity in plaque psoriasis for the last 25 years. I mean, we've watched a lot of innovation come, you know, on the systemic side of things, and we just haven't seen pure innovation. And when I say innovation, and I'll say it again, is totally brand new mechanism of action, something that's generated for dermatology in tapinarof and in Vtama tapinarof cream 1%. You know, there's a need for pure innovation when you look at the topical side of things. I think some interesting statistics is, you know, 83% of every prescription written in all of dermatology is topical. 17% is systemic. I think when you look at psoriasis itself, you're seeing that only 66% of those prescriptions are topical. And you've seen sort of this massive creep of the systemic medications down into the mild, moderate space, because there's just been a lack of innovation and really the inability for, you know, steroids to be used, which have been the mainstay. So for us, you know, with Vtama, where we're excited is we're delivering a first-in-class non-steroidal topical, which was proven safe and effective with no safety warnings or precautions in our label. And we're delivering powerful efficacy, you know, 6 times the efficacy versus our vehicle in our studies. We're delivering results that last. And I know we'll talk about this, but, you know, durable on treatment effect, and sort of a lasting remittive off treatment effect where in our studies, as patients got clear, they stayed clear for a median of 4 months, which is remarkable and truly is, I believe, going to change the game in dermatology. And our product is safe and well tolerated. So, you know, overall, we've been really excited. I think the other thing that I share that was exciting for us as we look to deliver pure innovation was, you know, we didn't just study one type. Our studies, as you know, being part of them, focused on mild, moderate, and severe patients. Our body surface area went up to 20%. We didn't limit where Vtama, the tapinarof cream 1%, could be applied. So it can be applied on anywhere on the body. And we did score our tolerability on all of those areas. I talked about the durability and the remittance, but really the remittance factor, hearing the stories has been remarkable of patients staying clear after they were PGA 0 or PASI 100. And then really producing a label that has not one label, safety warning, or precaution for us has been exciting. So look, our commitment is to bring new things to dermatology. We know we're not the only ones. There's other companies getting approvals, and it's our job to all work together to move the space forward. And I think we did that on May 24th, you know, with our PDUFA, and we were really excited to be able to do this for the dermatology community.
You know, going back, I was just trying to remember what was the actual topical product that we had for psoriasis, and I think it goes back 25 years or so up back to tazarotene. That was, I think, the last new molecule that we had, if I remember correctly.
You're 100% correct, and that's kind of like, we've both been around long enough, and that's too long. So
you know, yeah.
That's
everything
exciting.
else we had was combination of this, that, or change the formulation. We had a bunch of stuff, but purely really innovative new molecule, that was tazarotene. And I think we are very lucky that, as you said, there are a lot of companies, and now it's been almost the renaissance time for us in dermatology. We are having a lot of new molecules, not only biologics, not only systemics, but topicals as well. So we are very lucky. And you said we have, you know, we're gonna have a very rich armamentarium to deal with psoriasis topically, which is a big unmet need. You know, I use a lot of biologics, but still 80% of the prescriptions for psoriasis are still topical. We do need good topicals. So we are very lucky to have Vtama in our armamentarium. Tell us about, you know, launching a product, bringing a product to the market during the pandemic. It's not an easy task. And I know your team, I think you really are very lucky to have a great, great team. But tell us a little bit, what was the process like to bring a whole new product to the market during the pandemic and get such a clean, I would say, a clean package insert? I know those days it's not easy.
Yeah, no, it's, look, there's a lot of ways I could go with this question. I think as CEO of the company, the first thing I think about is our people and our values. Our values are heart, mind, and soul. It wasn't something we came up with as a senior team. It's really driven from the roots of the organization, of all about our people. We've handpicked every man and woman, you know, 50% men, 50% woman make up this organization, and everybody really puts their heart, mind, and soul into it. I think sometimes people forget, you know, it's one thing to get an approval on a new novel chemical entity in any space in medicine, but to do it during one of the most wild times in our lives, during a pandemic, and to execute pristinely for the patients and for the healthcare providers that were executing the study, for our Dermavant employees, for our CRO that we partnered with. A lot of people deserve a lot of credit. I've heard a lot of leaders in my role talk about the canned response of, you know, serving patients, and that's what we do. My focus was all about my employees, and I'm not going to lie about that. At that time, we were 60 employees. I love my organization, and there's a lot of people, there's a lot of other CEOs will say the same thing. You put your people first before yourself, and I think that's what we did at Dermavant. I want to also acknowledge, you know, our largest investor and parent in Dermavant Sciences that has funded us and really backed us 100% through thick and thin during the pandemic. So for us, I think every CEO who's listening or will listen would say the same thing, Dr. Kircik, which is people are everything. And at the end of the day, yes, you need a great, novel, innovative product, but it comes down to the DNA of the people that are executing, and we have some of the best at Dermavant.
And obviously, it's obvious. It shows. I think I've been involved with the clinical studies with your team, both on the medical and commercial side. Certainly, it does show. It does show the quality of the people you guys have and the team that you put together. It's remarkable. But I do want to go back. It's great speaking about the team. However, you also have a great product. Especially, I do want to go back with this a new concept now we're seeing with Vtama from the clinical studies. When I did the study on the long term, I had people remember clear almost 5 months off the drug. And that's a new quality, that's a new concept that we're seeing in topical treatment with psoriasis, right? Unfortunately, the topical corticosteroids, they work very well, they work fast, but then the disease flares up, comes back really fast once they stop the drug. So here now we have something, a new concept, what I would call the remittive effect of the drug. Tell us a little bit about that. It's gonna be, I think, very important information for our audience.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think as we shared earlier, it's, you know, I joined 4 years ago, and our phase 2B dose ranging study was published in JAD, and talking to about 20 of the physicians in that trial, they all said to me, you know, Todd, tapinarof has a wonderful efficacious effect, very safe and tolerable, but my patients aren't reflaring. Now, our phase 2Bs were 12-week studies, so they're sort of right censored with regards to watching a long-term effect. I really have to credit our chief medical officer, Dr. Phil Brown, who is extremely bright, very patient-centric. And when he built our full 52-week study for our pivotals and for the FDA, the question was, how do we devise a real-world study that is 12-week, which was our primary endpoint pivotal study, but then let's go out another 40 weeks and let's not just do what everybody does, which is put everybody on active and dose all the way out. Let's mimic real world. Let's take patients to zero. And for a topical, Dr. Kircik, that's a big wall to climb, to say patients that get to zero, fully clear, we're not going to redose them until they reach a PGA 2 or greater. And let's watch them and see how long they stay off therapy. And we discussed this in our stat plan with the agency. And that's what we did. And I think what you saw was, we saw patients on a median go out to about 4 months, in our pivotals 115 days, where we had 79 patients at zero, tracked for almost 4 months. And then in our long-term study, and this is really where it's not an anomaly, we had 312 patients reach zero in the entire 52 weeks of this study. And within the long-term safety, those patients stayed with a median of 130 days. So we're seeing this effect really remarkably across the entire study. We're hearing it from our sites where this study was executed in the US and Canada. And I think, look, it's an effect that not only is, you know, clinically being seen, but I think we're excited about, what does this mean from a budget impact perspective to payers? What is this going to mean to the system as we look to help sometimes expensive systemic medicines that have creeped down to mild or moderate treatment? When you have a topical that can do this, we really are transforming dermatology and changing the game. So for us, our studies were built that way. And then my last point on it is, you know, the FDA, it's in our label, and it basically shows that we have a time to worsening of 115 days, which is a median of 4 months for patients that reached PGA 0 within our pivotals. And we're excited. It's the right thing to do for the space to not only deliver innovation, but I think it's going to be game changing, not just for the patient, but for also the payer system. And I think that'll play out over time.
You know, I know Phil for a while too, and I think you guys did more than one gutsy move. Your first gutsy move was that you included mild patients, right? As we all know, it's very difficult to get success with the 2-grade improvement with the mild patients to get to zero all the way clear. which you did accomplish, but also after that, what you did with this remittive effect that's unusual, and I do a lot of clinical studies, you looked at the patients only at 100% clear, at zero, IGA of zero, rather than what we traditionally do, it's 0 and 1, clear and almost clear. So you really took quite gutsy moves that ended up being very, very successful. So I really congratulate on that and commend that, because it will be very useful information for future how to manage for those patients, especially for a topical, to get all 100% clear and have that remittive effect of the drug. I think it's quite remarkable. So let's talk a little bit about the drug itself, right? The chemical entity and the safety profile of it, because not only you guys got that remittive effect story in the package insert, in the label, but also you have a very clean, I should say, safety profile and tolerability in the package insert. Tell us a little bit about, if possible, about the molecule itself, and then about the safety, especially when we think about the steroids. How do we compare?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, first off, I think, you know, as I talked about, it's a novel chemical entity. So, you know, we're bringing something truly innovative. And I think if you said it earlier, so I'll use your language, we're not combining older agents. We're not delivering a molecule that comes from an injectable or an oral. We're delivering something that is solely built for dermatology in tapinarof, you know, in Vtama, tapinarof cream 1%. So the mechanism of action is seen as an aryl hydrocarbon receptive agonist. I know you're familiar with it, but for the listeners, you know, we're obviously downregulating cytokines, we're upregulating NERV2, we're upregulating barrier proteins across it with regards to this overall mechanism that's a novel chemical entity. So for us, that's exciting. I think when we look at the studies that we did, the 2 pivotals and the patients that finished the 12-week study, what was remarkable for me in my time in dermatology, Dr. Kircik, is 92% of patients that completed the study voted to roll over to the long-term safety. So I think to me it meant a lot, because in dermatology, you know, within psoriasis or other diseases, there's so many studies going on. There's so many choices for patients to make in the clinical setting. To have 92% of your patients really vote to stay on tapinarof at that time, 1% cream, it shows really an efficacious, safe, and tolerable molecule. Our adverse events within our own trial were seen as folliculitis, contact derm, and headache. They were all at very reasonable ranges, and I think really the rollover rates and the commitments of the patients within the trial was, to me, you know, very successful, and a lot of people were extremely happy. I think the other thing not to dismiss is we are a once-a-day cosmetically elegant cream, and in dermatology, where vehicle and comfort is everything, and you're looking for something that doesn't ruin your clothing, that is truly beautiful when you put it on morning or in the evening, whenever's conducive for you. I think for us, it was extremely important.
Absolutely. As you know, vehicles matter, right? So definitely the once a day and ease of use and the spreadability, those are all important factors for our patients. So as we get to that, as we were talking about the product itself or the vehicle, I know during the studies we had a lot of patient questionnaires. Tell us a little bit about the PRO results and what did you guys see?
Yeah, sure. I think, and again, I want to be thoughtful and respectful to every CEO and every leader of other companies. Some companies are bringing new products in the months to come, and I want to be thoughtful to that. Is we all want to know what patients think. The goal within your clinical trial is not just to get approval, it's to create as real world an environment as possible, and then ask them qualitative questions at the end of the trial that give you enough to match the quantitative data that you're getting with your p-values and your statistics. And I think for us, and I'll read some of them, I think, you know, it was remarkable. It was, you know, 85.8% said they could easily manage their plaque psoriasis. I think 83.6% were happy with how Vtama worked. For me, the remarkable stat was 81.7% said Vtama worked better than their previous therapies. Now, this isn't a head-to-head study, but this is a qualitative piece of feedback that to me matters. And I think, we had 89% talk about the beautification of the cream on their skin and the tolerability of our vehicle. And then we had 68% of those patients surveyed, Dr. Kircik, who said, and you said this earlier, use biologics, who said that they would choose Vtama over their previous used systemic agents, whether that's orals or injectables. And again, we've studied in mild, moderate, and severe up to 20% BSA, which is high for a topical, but again, we wanted to be as complete as we could in our label. And I think these statistics are interesting. And we're excited to be in the field now 3 weeks. So we're getting feedback fast enough.
So speaking about that, I had actually patients after the study, once we dismissed them, unfortunately, they came and it's like, where can I get the drug? How can I get it? And I had to tell them, to be patient. Now that the drug is out, has been approved, can they get it, or how fast did you bring it to the market? Because I know, again, it's not easy. A lot of people have drugs approved, but it takes a while to make it available through the pharmacies, through the third-party payers. So tell us a little bit what's going on right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let me, you hear me boast about Dr. Phil Brown and Dr. David Rubenstein and our medical and science team. I also want to boast about, our Chief Technical Officer, Paul Seebeck, and our Chief Commercial Officer, Chris Chapman, who are brilliant. We've all been in derm a long, long time. And I think the number one thing that people who are in the biotech, biopharma space learn is approval doesn't mean launch. Just because you get approval in a market, whether it's the US or any country, it doesn't always mean launch, but it does at Dermavant. And approval equaled launch. So what was remarkable for us was getting PDUFA or FDA approval on Monday, before Memorial Day weekend. In a matter of 3 days, we had reached 88,000 pharmacies. We had reached over 300 independent retail pharmacies, as well as specialty wholesalers. And I think it's the 4 years of work where we made a commitment to you and all of your dermatology, healthcare provider partners that it's like, look, if we're going to bring true innovation, we want to be ready day one. And so for us at Dermavant, approval equaled launch. And so it's been 3 weeks and I'm traveling the United States hearing from dermatologists the main question. And I'll say, what's your question? And they're like, Todd, how did your team have product within a day? Because most companies will say, well, it's going to take us 2 to 3 months, or we need time and it's hard. And we have samples and product and we're out there. I think the second thing is, we have, and I'm not going to go into it specifically, but a very large specialty organization that's got over 20 years at Derm that understands the relationship between the healthcare provider, the retail pharmacy or independent retail pharmacy, and the payer and the patient. And really, for those of you listening, our myvtama.com is our website that really allows a predictable experience for all patients to have access to Vtama right away. So I have to tell you, Dr. Kircik, I can't reiterate it enough. I'm beyond proud of our supply chain and manufacturing and commercial and finance teams to be able to say we got approval on Monday and the channel and every pharmacy is full by Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday before Memorial Day to have patients that need Vtama to be able to get it. That's remarkable.
Well, I think that speaks of you, of Dermavant, and the whole team, that how successful you guys and how hard you work to get that done, because I know that's not easy. And that doesn't happen that often. I've been around for a while. I've been involved with clinical research, and that's not easy. It doesn't happen that often. So we did talk about Vtama in psoriasis. Let's talk a little bit more about Dermavant. What are your plans, and how do you think Vtama in psoriasis evolve and maybe start a new conversation in dermatology about treatment of psoriasis topically?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, maybe I'll start with the fact that when you look at overall medical dermatology, when you look at value or where's the brunt of the focus in diseases, Psoriasis and AD covers about 70% of it. And you have a lot of companies bringing innovations. A year ago we saw innovation. We'll see more beyond us. It's a great thing. I mean, I've said this in some of the articles in the PR that I've been quoted. I do believe on the topical side of the business where you see this run of steroids, I'm not saying anything negative other than I would say I think we're in sort of the cassette world or the 8-track world in dermatology. And I think the molecules you're seeing in Vtama and others that will come will move us to the digital age of music. And I think it's important. I think it doesn't mean you ever disrespect the past, but I think companies' jobs are to bring pure innovation and then move the market together, not just one company. And I think you're going to see that amongst a bunch of us successfully. When it goes to Dermavant, I think for us with Vtama, I mean, this has been our life's work the last 5 years. The amount of molecules, the millions of molecules that fail getting approval through the FDA, it's remarkable to just say we got approval and blow it off. I mean, it's a mountain, and that's massive for us. So we're obviously approved for mild, moderate to severe psoriasis for treatment anywhere on the body for any length of time. That's exciting. And I think secondarily to that, which is in the public domain, we are currently in the United States and Canada. Dr. Kircik, you're aware, we're executing our adoring atopic dermatitis phase 3 pivotals, which is an 8-week time point for tapinarof. So that's being studied currently and moving along very well with results to report out in the first half of 2023. And beyond that, really, it's really interesting. The sky's the limit, because I think what you saw by Vtama, tapinarof 1% cream was accepted. Our pivotal trials were accepted in the New England Journal of Medicine. And I think what the conversation has been, even beyond dermatology, is the AHR mechanism of action and really the aryl hydrocarbon receptive agonist is, where else can this go? Psoriasis and AD is a game changer. Where else should this molecule go? And we have a lot of molecules behind just the pure innovation of tapinarof at Dermavant that we're moving forward and looking at. We're not fully sharing everything right now, but it's moving extremely fast for us. And as an organization, I think we have, as I said earlier, up to almost 300 people that are committed to you and your counterparts and healthcare providers in derm and the patients, and then seeing how we can really help the system from the payer perspective, and sort of arrest this growth on the systemic side that has just creeped too far down into the mild moderate patient and really just skyrocketed costs in the billions of dollars. And I think that's what tapinarof, Vtama cream is going to do, as well as the other innovations that other companies are going to bring forward.
Well, I think it's really something as this with this efficacy probably will be help third-party payers to limit the cost for biologics, right? If we have an efficacious topical, it will certainly be helpful probably to slow down the progression of that patient from a topical to a biologic where we can help and we have that efficacy that we talked about. I think we're almost at the end of our chat, but let me take a look at the questions if we have any questions that hasn't been answered. So there's always a burning question, and it's a good one. You did touch upon it a little bit, but maybe you can elaborate. The access, we are lucky to have a new molecule, but access is always and has always been a problem, unfortunately, for our patients. How do you foresee the access will be for Vtama?
Yeah, no, that's a fair question. And I think those of us that grew up in dermatology and have spent 10 to 20 years day to day in derm, it starts with the team. So I'll go back to Chris Chapman, our chief commercial officer, who has over 30 years, not just in the payer marketplace, but the point of sale, understanding the transactional balance sheet between healthcare providers, pharmacies, payers, and patients. Dr. Kircik, I would tell you, dermatology and access is extremely complicated. And you have to have the right organization that understands it at the granular level. You can't just release a card or some type of program. Now, ours is My Vtama, and so people listening can go to the myvtama.com webpage to learn more about a predictable experience to receive it with a prescription. under the right rules and guidelines. But I think the bigger thing for Dermavant that I would share for the listeners or those that will listen to this after the fact is it's having an organization that didn't come from big pharma, that came from dermatology and understands the street and the relationship between the patient's journey from the healthcare provider to the pharmacy, you know, possibly to their payer. That's what Dermavant understands better than any company, and I'm confident of that. And I think our goal is to provide that predictable experience. So it starts with myvtama.com, and then obviously our sales force will be covering the United States fully nationwide, and their 14 years experience on average to be able to have these conversations at the granular level with physicians to make sure they get that predictable experience. So you can count on us for that.
Perfect. That's really, really reassuring, because that's one of the biggest challenges we face every day in our offices. So I thank you so much, Todd, for this chat, and I think it was very insightful, and it will be very helpful for audience and for everybody in dermatology. Again, thank you so much. I wish you a good night, and I do want to thank Dermavant again to support this program. Thanks, everyone, and have a good night.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.